Welcome to the Rochester, New Hampshire History Podcast, a monthly show that will shine a light on a piece of history that has been all but forgotten.
In the late 1740s, Rochester was a region under siege. Indians had descended upon the town, killing, kidnapping, and destroying livestock. It was not safe to venture outside, even if you were armed. Several families gave in to despair and left Rochester. The town asked the colonial government in Portsmouth for soldiers to help combat the Indians. Their letter to Portsmouth had some very distressing passages.
Continually liable to the assaults of the barbarous Indian enemy, who have killed within the past week 4 men and taken prisoners 1 man and a boy. They have killed and wounded a considerable number of our cattle. They are continually lurking about our houses and fields and are seen by some of us almost every day. We cannot go out or come in without being liable to fall by them. Extend to us your paternal care and affection by allowing us a suitable number of soldiers to guard us in our garrisons.
Parson Amos Main traveled to Portsmouth to deliver the request for help. He was successful and acquired for Rochester not only the requested troops, but a 4-pound cannon. The only condition, the town of Rochester had to return the cannon whenever Portsmouth demanded it back. The cannon was originally stored at Parson Main's house on Rochester Hill. The cannon did not stop future Indian attacks, but was used to warn the town of impending danger. For example, in May 1748, Jonathan Hodgkin's wife was killed by Indians in Garnet. The cannon was rolled out, filled with 9 pounds of gunpowder, and fired. The cannon blast alerted everyone in Rochester of the violent attack. The explosion was so loud that it was heard in Dover and Portsmouth. The cannon was moved from Parson Main's house to the Stephen Wentworth Tavern on Rochester Hill. It was also known as the Wolf Tavern because of their sign, which depicted General Wolfe.
About 30 years later, in 1776, the colonists living in the British North American colonies had rebelled against the authority of the British. The American Revolutionary War was in full swing, and Rochester's cannon had become in demand by others. The cannon was still residing in the tavern when Portsmouth demanded it to be returned. It was believed that the British fleet was going to attack Portsmouth Harbor, and the cannon was needed for the defense of Portsmouth. Rochester sent soldiers to defend the harbor, but they did not send their beloved cannon.
The selectmen of Rochester replied to Portsmouth's demand with the following long-winded letter. In short, they informed Portsmouth that they looked upon the cannon to be the town's property, and it still could be of service in alarming the country, and they were not giving it up. From then on, Rochester kept possession of the cannon, as no other community tried to claim it. The cannon became quite popular. Rochester historian Franklin McDuffie wrote in his book, The History of Rochester, New Hampshire. From this time, the town retained undisputed possession of this ancient relic of royalty. It is impossible to trace all its wanderings, in which it seems to experience more than the usual vicissitudes of earthly affairs. From the ministers to the tavern, from scaring away the barbarous Indian enemy to celebrating with booming voice many anniversaries of national independence, used first by one political party and then the other to hurl notes of defiance to their foes, ever faithful through good report and evil report. In 1845, Rochester lost its cannon. Franklin McDuffie wrote, the cannon was exploded July 4, 1845 by William Roberts, William Hodgkin, and others. Its fragments found an inglorious burial among metal of less noble origin in the iron heaps of the foundry. The town had lost a time-honored friend, and there were many mourners. At the next town meeting, the selectmen were instructed to prosecute the individuals who had sold the old iron. There was a long and expensive lawsuit in which the town was finally defeated by not being able to establish its ownership. This results seem to have been well deserved by the town for neglecting to care for so valuable a relic. Thus ends the tale of Rochester's first cannon, from the early days in 1740s to its last big explosion in 1845.
This ends the podcast. If you have any questions or comments, please email bobgriffinpodcast@gmail.com and come back next month for another episode of Rochester, New Hampshire History.